Okay, we'll start with Kapitel Tillim for Eretz Yisrael. Let's not do it as a routine, but to realize that every word of Tillim is very powerful, every chapter of Tillim very powerful, and it's definitely accomplishing things. And let's continue. There are miracles happening there on a constant basis, and it's all the schus of everybody's Tillim and tzedakah. So let's continue. Lam Natseach, Mizmar LeDavid. Yancho Adonai b'yom tzara, Yisagevcho Shem Elohei Yaakov. Yishlach ezecha mikodesh u'mitzion yisadeka. Yizkar kol menchosecha ba'iloscha yidashna sela. Yiten lecha chilvavecha. V'chol atzoscha yimalei. Neranana b'shua secha. V'shem Eloheinu nidgal. Yimalei Adonai kol meshalesecha. Ata Yadaiti, Kiyashia Adonai Meshiche, Yarnehu Mishmei Koche, Bigvuras Yesha Yeminim, Eile Barechev, Eile Basusim, Anachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Naskir, Heima Korav Nafolu, Anachnu Kamnu Banaseda, Adonai Yeshia Hamelech Yaneinu B'Yom Kareinu. So we're on the bottom of page 7. So this is towards the end of Ois Daled in the Mamar Lech Lecha, Tavshin Beis. And here he's talking about after he spoke about the negative, how Yeshus is something which could lead a person to do Averis. Yeshus could prevent a person from doing mitzvahs. Gave the example of tzedakah, but how it applies to all mitzvahs. Then here, he speaks more in the positive. How bittul makes a person a keli, a vessel for godliness. So, I think we'll back up a little bit because towards the end of this ois, he starts to talk about specifically how it affects Torah study. So let's start from that part. So this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines from the bottom. The last word on the line is Rabbo Seinu. And we're starting from the dot. 10 lines. That's one after number 9 and one before number 11. Usually it works out that way, and here too. Hello, no, I started the wrong line.
It's 1 after 11.
Oh, okay.
Rabbi Majeski, it's a lot of traffic downstairs. It's so hard to come.
Somehow in the kitchen there's always a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Regarding the knowledge of Torah, our sages say, Ein ha-Torah miskayemes, the Torah will not be permanent. Ela b'mi shememis atzmei aleh. A person can't acquire Torah in a way that it would be part of him and permanent unless he gives his life for it. Giving his life for it doesn't mean literally chas v'shalom, but it means misawinyan abitl. It means to give up something of myself in order to be able to acquire it. They say there was once a group of Chassidim. This is the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim, and they were all having a discussion what they gave up to become a Chassid. In other words, they themselves were all, we're talking about the early Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, each one was, it was a giants in Torah study. But nevertheless, they realized the greatness of Chassidus and they dedicated a lot of time of their life to learning Chassidus and davening where Chassid davens. But each one brought out, as a result of that, they brought out, what is it that I gave up? One of the Chassidim, his name is Isaac Humler, he was one of the biggest Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. He's mentioned a lot in the Sichos of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And to get an idea of what we're talking about, he was a Chassid that after the Alter Rebbe was nostalgic, some of the Chassidim were hoping that he would become the next Rebbe. Some of them asked him to become the next Rebbe. And not only they asked him, but actually he considered it and he was going to accept the position. And he said that they came, brought a horse and wagon, and they were asking him to come to a certain city, maybe it was the Alter Rebbe's city, and to take over the position. He put his foot on the wagon to go, and he said when he put his foot on the wagon, he felt the gates of wisdom just open up to him like never before. Understanding that when you take upon yourself a position of leadership, then Hashem gives you a whole new level of potential that you should be able to carry your shlichus. And then he remembered, the Alter Rebbe once said to him, Isaac, don't ever become a Rebbe. He said, I took my foot off the wagon and everything disappeared. Is that for that person, that was Mesiras Nefesh, that was his bittul. That when, some people bittul is to give away some money, other people laugh at that. Some people bittul is to give up their delicacies and give it to a poor person, give up time, give up entertainment, give up an opportunity for vacation. For him, the bittul was his gates of wisdom opened up. Could you imagine what it meant to a chassid of that caliber? But when he remembered, the Alter Rebbe said no, he put that away and he gave it up. So he was the one that actually said that had he not become a chassid, he could have achieved to be on the level like the Shach and the Taz. Shach and the Taz are one of the most fundamental mefarshim commentators on Shulchan Aruch. They're printed in every Shulchan Aruch. In the Shulchan Aruch, and basically we go by their rulings and their interpretation. They lived maybe 150 years before him, but they were giants. So he said, had he not devoted so much time for learning Chassidus, he could have achieved so much more with the nigla that he was learning. So every Chassid said that, why is it you have to give something up? The answer is because to get and become a vessel for godliness, there has to be bittul. And bittul means giving something up. But what you give up has to be something that you're giving up that's really connected to you. If you're going to give up ownership of the Brooklyn Bridge, I don't think that's going to do much. From now on, you can have the Empire State Building, you can have the Brooklyn Bridge. These lechatchila didn't belong to me. In other words, it's a mashal, but it means that giving up means something which really means a lot to me. That's what I'm giving up, not the things that are unimportant. They tell the story that in communist Russia, they once, over there, the philosophy was that everything has to go to the government, to the mother Russia, the wonderful mother. And they basically asked this guy, tell me, if you would have 100 buildings that you own and 50 cows and 20 chickens, what would you do with it? He said, I'd give it all away to the government. Oh, beautiful. If you have not 100 buildings, but you have 50 buildings and 10 cows and 5 chickens, what do we do with it? We go to the government. Then they say, if you have 1 house, 1 cow, 1 chicken, what do we do with it? I don't know. So I understand, if you have 100, you'd give it all away. If you have 50, you'd give it all away. If you have 1, you're doubting? Well, this I actually have. So since I'm not ready to give that away. I can give you 100 cows and I'll give you buildings, an Empire State Building. It means giving away means dafka something which is dear to me and precious to me. And if I give that up, that's bittul. Was dafki yukima Torah, and then their Torah can really exist within me. And we know that the Gemara even says that if they learn Torah without bittul could even lead to the opposite, that Torah becomes a drug that is destructive rather than a drug that brings life. And that's why the Torah was given dafka to Yidden. Because the neshama of a Yid, it's inherent in the neshama of a Yid to have bittul to Hashem. It's part of the chemistry of the neshama. If that's the case, how could there be Yidden that don't have bittul? It's like everything else, because it's concealed and it's buried and it's hidden, but the essence and the natural state of every neshama is bittul to Hashem. The ksiv, as it says, that Hashem plants the seeds in the tzaddik. Zera HaKadosh Baruch HaSatera mitzvahs. Hashem planted the seeds of Torah mitzvahs, which means Hazriya, when you plant something, tzrich aliyah ba'aretz. The seed has to be put into the ground. Vaz tiyat tzmicha, and only then will the ground produce and something will grow out of the ground. But Teisus Uribu is something which will be much, much greater than the seed that I put in. You put in a seed, and what grows out of the seed is a tree with hundreds of leaves and hundreds of fruits. Yidden are also called Eretz. Ebershter's land. You are my desired land. So therefore, they have bittul, like we said before, that Eretz represents bittul. The Gashmis, Eretz is the lowest thing. Everybody walks on it, so Eretz is bittul. As it says, Ki atem hamat mikol ha'amim, I didn't choose you because you're the most, more than other nations, but because you're the smallest of all the nations. And Rashi explains, the smallest doesn't mean because we're smaller in number, that's why Hashem chose us. Smallest means bittul, that we have humility.
Mamar Lech.
Yeah.
Is it saying that we had this bittul in us before Matan Torah, like just as a nation, like when Hashem was offering Torah to?
Apparently, we have this bittul as an inheritance from Avram Avinu. We have the neshama as an inheritance from Avram Avinu.
Right.
So the neshama, in essence, has the bittul. I guess by Matan Torah, it came out. The reason why Hashem gave us the Torah was because we had the keli to have the Torah, which is the bittul, and the bittul comes from the neshama.
Does it come from Avram Avinu?
Right.
So it was not.
Well, that's what it's saying.
Okay.
No, with Avram Avinu and the bittul, and he has a special neshama. As a result of that, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, he merited that all his descendants will have that neshama. That's the nefesh elokis, which we all have.
Okay.
So it means we have it within our nature.
Thank you.
So just like Begashmis, only earth could make things grow, so too, only bittul will make the Torah that I learned grow. What does it mean to grow? If somebody humiliates himself because of Torah, what does that mean? So Rashi explains, he asks his teacher, calls of all his doubts. Even if there are things, his friends will laugh at him and laugh, why is he asking such a question? So do I ask the question because I need to learn Torah and know the answer? Or do I not ask the question because people are going to laugh at me? So the Gemara says, of course you should ask the question, because how are you going to learn Torah? But not only it's okay, that's not only that's the right thing to do, but it says if you will do that, humiliate yourself because you want to learn Torah, not only you'll get Torah knowledge, but as a result of that, you'll even reach higher heights in Torah. And that in such a way, because that requires bittul. Again, it doesn't mean you have to look for things to do to humiliate yourself, but it means that the only way I can reach Torah is going to be by doing something where I'm giving something up. Not only that it shouldn't be something which would stop me, but on the contrary, I should be able to appreciate it. If you ask someone a question, which mitzvahs would you enjoy more, have more chayas, and a mitzvah that is perfectly logical, you understand, that makes perfect sense, and logic dictates to do this mitzvah, or a mitzvah that doesn't make any sense, there's no way you can explain it, no way you can understand it, you just do it because Hashem said so.
Yeah.
No, you need two opinions, of course. So Leah says,
I'm saying
you say which?
second.
Second. And who says the first?
I'll say the first.
Okay. So the answer is like this. If you look at things externally, then the mitzvahs which make more sense and we understand them, those are the ones I should have more chayas, more excitement, because I understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing. In fact, it's brought down, I think we had this earlier in the year, that the word tam in Hebrew, tam means reason. And tam also means taste. That's why everybody's in the kitchen. That's the reason. So tam means taste and tam means reason. Why? Because when I do something that has a reason and I understand why, I'm more excited about doing it. I know what I'm accomplishing. And I realize I'm accomplishing amazing things. On the other hand, if I do mitzvahs on a deeper level, the greatest thing involved in a mitzvah is when I do it with bittul. Where's there more bittul? When I do it with that I understand, or I do something that I don't understand. Right? So therefore, if something comes up, which I'm meant to do, like the example we gave the other day, a Rebbe tells a Chassidus to do something and he does not understand it, then in essence, one person will walk away maybe a little bit resentful, a little bit upset. A real chassid would be excited to have the opportunity to do something with absolute bittul. The Rebbe told a story with the Rabbi Marash that there was a chassid that he was a businessman and he had some issues with family, and him and his wife got into this argument and came to a point where eventually he moved away. So he lived in one city, she lived in another city. I'm not sure how many years this was going on. And there were people involved, and eventually they were able to reconcile, and he's going to move back home, and the marriage will go back to normal. On the way home, he stopped over by the Rebbe Marash. He told the Rebbe Marash the good news that Baruch Hashem, him and his wife are getting together again. He also asked for a bracha. He said that he's going to be doing a very big business deal with a nobleman who lives in this city. So he's going to go home and just get back into the family. Then he's going to go to the nobleman to do business. The Rebbe Marash says, I think you should go to the nobleman first and then go home. So the chassid looked at the Rebbe Marash and said, I was out of the house for a long time, years or whatever. Shouldn't I first go home and then do that? And the Rebbe Marash says, no, and I think you should first go to the nobleman and then go home. I think he tried a few times, one of those. Well, he listened at the end. Obviously, he wasn't the chassid who understood it, but he listened. He went to the nobleman. When he came to the nobleman, he sees wagons, people carrying boxes, and he finds out that the nobleman is in the process, and that day, to move out of this country to a different country completely. Which means, had he gone there, he never would have had access to him, and he wouldn't be able to do the business deal. And he realized it's a ness that he came then. I told the story somewhere. I said, and probably that helped for Shalom Bayis also. He came home with a lot of money. It was also a plus. So the Rebbe asked a question. The man was begging he was ready to go home. He was like all excited to go home. And the Rebbe Marash is not letting him go home. It bothered him. Couldn't the Rebbe tell him the reason why, or at least allude to it a little bit, give him a little bit of a clue? If you go to the nobleman, if you go later, you're gonna miss out on it. Something just, why isn't it like almost like mean? Tell the person so he should feel better about it. And this was the Rebbe's answer, that he needed a bracha, and in order to get the bracha, there had to be bittul. And bittul is only if you don't understand. So if we understand and appreciate what bittul is, then on the contrary, those mitzvahs which you do with Kabbalah Seil are more precious to us than the ones that we don't understand. But we still work on understanding and knowing the reason for things, for other reasons, because that helps us internalize it. But nevertheless, those who learn Torah in a way of bittul, those are the ones that could reach the highest heights. But a person who is arrogant, he's not a vessel for godliness. So the conclusion is, this is what it's all about. In the beginning of a person's Aveda, tzarich liyageya atzmai. He has to labor, work hard. Begias nefesh, begias basar. Work hard means both working hard with the nefesh and working hard with the flesh, which means there are things which are hard because it goes against my nature. It's something emotionally hard. And then there's also physically what it requires, maybe more hours than I would like to. I'd like to sleep more hours or eat more or eat earlier. And when you're learning and davening, sometimes you give up those things. So it's sort of working hard on both levels. And the purpose is, it's a form of bittul. The hard work is bittul. Lachniya hagasa shabai, in order to subdue that coarseness which is within me, it makes a person more humble. When he's humbled, then he can come closer to Hashem, b'tefillah, b'teira. So this is the prerequisite to davening, the prerequisite for Teira, the prerequisite for mitzvahs, that it requires bittul. And if it requires bittul, then through Teira, through davening, and through mitzvahs, I will feel a strong connection to godliness. Yeah.
So yesterday we were speaking about money and how that can get in the way of someone being a Keli Hashem. And today we're talking about like Secha. But in the world, someone who's like smart and rich is like ay. So how, like, that's like what you want in the world.
Right.
But it seems to be, you could be such a better Eved Hashem, simple, like Kabbalah, solid, simple. So how do you?
Because the way it works is like this: the more seichel you have, the more you understand, the greater will be the value of your bittul.
So you just still daven to have a lot of seichel and a lot of money, but with all that, also have.
First of all, it's, there's na'aseh v'nishma. One part of Torah is to learn and understand, because the more you understand something with seichel, has a different advantage. It becomes more part of you. In other words, if someone tells me, someone that I trust, let's say like a Rebbe, tells me, do this and this. On one hand, in terms of bittul, it's amazing, but that means like this. Me and my nature, from my end, I'm not really into doing this, but being the Rebbe told me, I'll do it. So to a certain extent, the doing it doesn't really penetrate every part of me, because my intellect and my feelings are not really into it as much. Only my hands and feet are into it. So from one end, the end of bittul, it's an amazing thing. But on another end, when you understand something, which means it becomes part of me and my perspective, that my nature, my seichel, my understanding and my feelings are driving me to do this, that means that this mitzvah, this learning is penetrating every fiber of my being. There's no part of me that's left out of the experience. So you need both. But the basis for me doing what has to be done should be bittul and Kabbalah said.
So if someone has like, does that mean that their keli is bigger?
More bittul?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So where would you think is the best bittul factory in the world? Living in the dorm. You have to make space for other people here and there and everywhere. I want the window open, I want the window closed. This one's running for the shower and that one's running for the shower. And the idea of making space for another person, that's really bittul. That's what it's all about. And when I am with myself, there's very little bittul required. As soon as there are two people in the same area, that's when the bittul experience begins. And there's three people, then you need more bittul, and so on and so forth.
I think there's a lot of bittul laundry.
What?
The laundry.
Everything. Okay, you guys are living there. You can tell me. You're there. You can tell me all the bittul experiences, but I'm sure that it's at every part of the experience of life in a dorm, and of course that's what marriage is all about. Yeah.
Is the term bittul the actual meaning that we should give of ourselves more than we give to ourselves? In other words, give much more to someone else than you would give to yourself.
Give more than you would take.
Right.
I don't know if we measure it that way on a scale, like at the end of the day. So what's what is it called? Deposits and withdrawals. How many deposits did I make? And how much did I withdraw for myself? I don't know if it's measured in such a measurable way, but in general,
Meaning to put yourself second, that's what I mean. Or another Jew.
definitely because of the bittul aspect, but let's not also forget that the things I need to do for myself is also my responsibility by Hashem. One of the things that we also can make a mistake is to think that when I do something, anything I do for myself, not right now I'm being selfish. It's not true. If I'm learning myself, I'm davening myself, I'm doing things for myself or my children, my family, this is my responsibility. Number one, Hashem sent me down for me to perfect my neshama and, of course, to do other things also. But, and naturally, if I have bittul and I give others, it also enhances me and my avodah. It's not just for the other person. Like the Gemara says, when a person gives tzedakah, you're doing so much for that recipient. The Gemara says, but the recipient is doing much more to the giver, because what I'm gaining spiritually by giving tzedakah, the brachas that I'm getting by giving tzedakah is more than the $100 that I'm giving to this person. So really it works both ways anyway. By giving, I'm getting. And just like Begashmias, we're told that people shouldn't worry that if they give tzedakah, they're going to lose out, because whatever you give, you'll never lose money because of what you give. It'll come back to you. And the same thing is also any form of giving. It says in the introduction of Tanya that if a person who gives of his time to teach other people Torah, then as a result of that, their minds will become sort of, the Eibush will give them a bracha, that they'll be able to succeed in their studies 1,000 times more than they would have done on their own. So it means by giving, I'm actually getting. It's hinted in the word, by the way. How do you spell to give in Hebrew? Nun, Sof, Nun. It's one of those few words that you can read it in both directions. You can read it this way, and you can read it backwards. Because whatever goes this way is going to come back.
Wow. We're going down.
When we give tzedakah, we have to give tzedakah that hurt us, but like not harm us, right? Like to the extent that like I give more than like
I can give more than Maisa, but not more than Chumash. Yeah.
you are not allowed to give more than Chumash.
Generally speaking, you're not supposed to, right? Unless a person has more money. For example, Bill Gates, if he's going to give Chumash, he'll still have fish for Shabbos. It's not going to be bad. I mean, you have to be on that level, but it means not to give it to a point where I'm going to have to suffer and my family is going to have to suffer. I'm not supposed to do that.
Rabbi Majeski, if you never feel like this feeling of like sadness when you're left with $5 in your bank account because you know that you gave money at least to the good place, like what should you do in order to feel pain? Like you don't have money, but it's fine. Like you gave to nice place and Hashem will give you money.
You don't have to worry what to do about pain. There are a lot of people around you. They'll take care of that. They'll give you enough reason for pain. But we don't have to feel pain. We have to feel only simcha. Yeah.
Only simcha.
Yeah.
Only simcha. $5 in the account for the rest of the year.
Okay, you can get a piece of codfish.
Okay. We still have to talk a little bit more. We'll get there about the difference between bittul and a lack of self-esteem, which is a negative thing. But let me just go over, did we do all the terms in this? I think we did, yeah. Okay, just the last one, Negias Nefesh Negias Basar. It's a term, it's found in Tanya, and it's used a lot in Maimorim, to toil and to labor with my soul and labor with my body. Now, he's going into, so what's the solution? Up until now, we spoke about the problem. Now, what's the solution? So we're starting with Ois Ches, Ois Hey, page 8. What's the Eitzah? What's the advice? Lachnia hagasis. Okay, I recognize that I have this coarseness. What it means by coarseness is talking about this. Coarseness is the sense of pronounced sense of self, and as a result of that, the more sense of self, the less sense of godliness. And I want to refine that. I want to make that less. How do I do that? How do I refine myself? And as we know that in Chassidus, it explains everything comes through his bonus. When I think about things in a certain way, then that'll help me feel about it in a different way. What should I be thinking that's going to help me feel about it in a different way? The person should stop and think, what is the cause? What caused me to have this arrogance? Because even that is not the same for every person. Of course, we have this arrogance in a sense naturally, because that's the nefesh bahamis. Just like the nefesh alakis is naturally bittul, the nefesh bahamis is naturally all about self. In fact, that's the definition of a nefesh bahamis. Nefesh bahamis is not evil. Nefesh bahamis is not something that has a desire to kill, to steal, to do things that are immoral. That's wrong. When you learn Tanya, the nefesh bahamis is just about self. That's what it is. The Yetzer Hara is used more to describe a desire for evil. But the nefesh bahamis, really, when we say the soul of an animal doesn't have to be evil. Let's say a cow, a dog, a cat. They don't have to be evil, but a cat knows nothing else but itself. And everything it does is for self. It wants to eat food for itself. It wants to have fun for itself. It wants to be loved for itself. Everything it pursues, it's for itself. There's no higher purpose than self. So the nefesh bahamis in us is yeshus by definition. By definition, that's the nefesh bahamis, and everything he does is self. So, but nevertheless, there are certain things that will generate additional kinds of yeshus. And how do I work on that? So we have to know, what is it that caused me to develop this yeshus condition? Yeshusitis. We'll give it a name. So it depends. So it goes like this. If it's because you learned a lot of Torah, and as a result of that, just like we learned before, that a person has a lot of money that makes them feel very arrogant. So there could be a person who has not into money, he's into Torah study, but he's learned so much Torah, and he knows what he learned, he remembers, his good memory. Now he has vast knowledge of Torah in his head, and that makes him feel arrogant. He should set aside time to think about this. In other words, it shouldn't be just a fleeting thought, but he should actually concentrate and think about this in a very serious way. That there's no reason to be arrogant and to be proud of it. The Kiyom Razal, our sages said, this is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. It's interesting, you see it here in the booklet on page 61, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. I think that everyone wants to explain who said this, who made this statement. The statement was made by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Who was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai? He was, it says here, a student of Hillel and Shammai. He was the greatest Torah scholar in his generation. He lived to the age of 120. The Gemara says there wasn't anything in Torah that he did not know. All the hidden secrets of Torah, he knew everything. And he's the one that said that if you know a lot of Torah, don't give yourself, what does it say in English? Do not take credit for yourself. Why not? So he gives an interesting reason, because that's what you were created for. In other words, let's see the words aside. When a person feels like proud or arrogant about something, let's say you're hired to do a certain job in an office. The boss walks in and sees that not only you did this job, you did 5 other jobs that you weren't even asked to do. Wow, that's a wow, and you feel proud. But if you're hired to do something and you do it, there's usually no wow for that. What's the wow? That's your job. What did you do? So he's saying the nature is that a person feels proud when he does something more than what was expected of him. If you do something which you were commanded to do, and not only commanded, that's the whole purpose why you were created. And if I don't do it, I never fulfilled the purpose which I was created. So in other words, if I'm at a job and I don't do what I was meant to do, and it comes to the end of the day and I never did the job, or I did half of it, or I did just one fraction of the job, then of course it'll be a big disappointment. And the fact that I did do it, there's nothing to be proud of. That's the norm. You committed yourself to do it and you did it. That's fine. So if a person was not just hired for a job, you were created for this purpose. And if you don't do this, you haven't fulfilled the purpose that Hashem, who is Melech Malchei Amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, created you for. You have nothing to be proud of. You just did what you were supposed to do. If you ever had any kind of interaction with police and you thank them for doing something, they always answer, just doing my job. It's a humble way of speaking. It's interesting, and that's what he's saying. When you do your job, doesn't to be so proud of. That's what I'm here for. So if a person would think about this, that's number one. Number one is that's what I was created for. That's what Rabbi Majeski said. I was created for this purpose. So I'm doing what I was created for. That shouldn't give me a feeling of arrogance. That's number one. Another thing to meditate on, the Kama Shalom, there's how much you learn. You didn't even get close to the real depth in Torah. There's a pasuk. It says the Torah is deep, deep. Who will ever find it? And it's bigger than the earth and bigger than the ocean, which means that the real arrogance comes from when you learn something. Let's say you have a lot of knowledge and you think, wow, I have a lot. And if you would just realize what the Torah is all about and how big the Torah is and how deep the Torah is, and we realize that what I know is really a fraction of what there is to know, then all of a sudden I don't feel so proud of what I do know. And this would register in his mind that he never reached the real depth of his learning. He wouldn't be so arrogant. I remember once speaking to someone, and obviously he was not a chassid, because the chassid, even if he felt that way, wouldn't speak that way. But this person, someone who was a bacher, I was a bacher, we met, we were talking, we knew each other. And I said to him, so what have we been learning lately? He tells me the subject he was learning. And he said, I asked a kasha, I challenged something that the Beis Yosef says, Rabbi Yosef Cairo says. And he goes, and this time I think I got him. Now, it's not just a matter of Amunah, like Rabbi Yosef Cairo was the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch. He's not just a giant, he's a giant of giants that the whole Torah world, the whole Jewish world, the whole Jewish nation goes by his rulings and the Shulchan Aruch. He's the Rebbe of Klal Yisrael in a sense, and you think you're challenging, but I'm just talking just from an intellectual point of view. It's like a little 5-year-old would say something like, Einstein said this and this, and I think I got him. Everybody would start laughing. Why would they start laughing? Like, don't you get it? Like how far you are from that? If a person says, I think I got him, it means that he doesn't even begin to understand the depth of knowledge and the breadth of knowledge that tzaddikim of this caliber had. It's like having water in a cup and thinking that it's the same like the Atlantic Ocean. And that's what it is. The Torah is like the ocean. What you have is in a cup of water. And you're going to no, I don't have a cup, I have a gallon. Oh, you have a gallon. So it's a little bit more like the Atlantic Ocean. I think it's a little bit more like the Atlantic Ocean. Rebbe, you never saw what the Atlantic Ocean looked like, probably, if you can say that. That's what he's saying. So my toe, when a person thinks about that, that'll also take away from the feeling of Yeshus. And then there's a third thing. And the third thing is more details, but the third thing is, and then stop and think, how much did the Torah affect you? The whole purpose of Torah is to refine us. How much did that do? There's a story with the Alter Rebbe, that a Chassid came in the Alter Rebbe, and he told the Alter Rebbe his learning schedule. And he told him everything that he's learning. And he said, so to appreciate the story, it's important to know that in Yiddish, the word for studying and the word for teaching is the same word. In Yiddish, you say, ich hab gelernt, means I studied this and this. But you can also say, I taught someone this and this, be the same Yiddish word. So he tells the Alter Rebbe, ich hab gelernt, I learned this Masechta, and I learned that tractate, and I learned the other tractate, and another tractate, gave a long list of everything he learned. So the Alter Rebbe said to him in Yiddish, that you just now told me all the things that you taught the Torah. What did the Torah teach you? And the Chassid fainted. In those days, people would faint in the Rebbe's room. These are people with real feelings and deep feelings. When they heard something that touched them, they fainted. So they were used to it. The Gabbai came, pulled them out, put some cold water. But he said to him, what did Torah teach you? What does that mean? It means to say that I have to become a more refined person from learning Torah. The question is, what does the first part mean? What do you mean you taught the Torah? Just a play on words? It's not a play on words, but unfortunately, when a person has arrogance and not bittul, they end up not only not getting taught by the Torah, they end up actually teaching the Torah, which means they put their preconceived ideas into the Torah that they read. Sometimes you have debates with people they're not into Yiddishkeit. They'll quote something from the Torah and say, you see, Abraham did this and Sarah did that and Moshe did the other thing, which means they have a preconceived ideas. And because they don't know what Torah is all about, they sort of incorporate their ideas into what they're reading. And that can happen, which means I'm teaching the Torah rather than the Torah is teaching me. Anyway, to be continued, wishing everybody a good Shabbos. Actually, next week we're going to be working more with the Mamar Lech Lecha as a preparation for Yud Shvat. So I'll see what we'll do. Maybe we'll finish this chapter, or maybe we'll do Mamar Lech Lecha, and then we'll go back to the beginning. Yes, you can come in.
Oh, no, she's just talking, like,
Okay, thank you. What?
Anybody know?
Yes.
For example, but this is something we have to select for ourselves. Because I can't say, for example, to like, no, he was just doing his job. Like, to someone that teaches, like, you do have to like, praise him and give him power.
Right.
It's like for each other one.
Right. Of course. The arrogant person knows just the opposite.
Right.
The other person knows that Torah is a big deal. That's what I was created for. Myself. It's supposed to be the reverse. You're right. Yes.
Well, thank you.
Can I break that?
Vicky made a very important observation. Vicky made a very important observation. That this way of thinking, big deal, that's what I'm supposed to say about myself, not about other people's accomplishments. The other person I should realize and respect and be in awe of what they've accomplished.
Vicky, nice job. Great job. Great.